Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're taking a look today at the Wyze Cam Pan version 3. This is another affordable camera from Wyze, and it has a lot of freedom of movement here. It'll rotate around 360 degrees and also capture 180 degrees vertically. And this new camera, unlike their old one, is weatherproof, so you can put it outside, although it does need to be hooked up via a USB power source. And we're going to take a closer look at this camera and what it's all about in just a second, but I do want to let you know, in the interest of full disclosure, that this came in free of charge from Wyze. However, they are not reviewing or approving what you're about to see before this is uploaded, nor are they paying for this review, and all the opinions you're about to hear are my own. So let's get into it now and see what this camera is all about. Now, the price point on this comes in at around $40 delivered. Although the camera is very affordable, to get the most out of it, you do need to pay an ongoing subscription fee. Prior Wyze cameras would give you most of the functionality for free, but not these new ones, so just bear that in mind. Now, as far as range of motion is concerned, as I mentioned at the outset, it'll go a full 360 degrees here. You can control it with your phone, and you can also set up some waypoints where it will do a regular patrol looking for motion. One of the cool things about it is that because the camera is on its own little component here, if you want to go into a more private mode where the camera is not on, you hit the privacy mode button here, and it will not only turn the camera off, but point it downward so it can't pick up anything. So it's got a nice little feature set here, I think. The motor is a lot quieter than the prior edition camera. You will hear it on your recordings, but it's not nearly as loud as the old one. And overall, it's pretty fun to get this thing set up and operating. Now, the camera, as I mentioned, is weatherproof. It's IP65 rated. They have a mount that you can use to get it installed on a wall or hanging off of a door frame or something like that. It will allow you to mount it upside down. In fact, there is also a tripod mount here on the bottom. So you do have a lot of mounting options for this that you didn't have before. So you should be able to get this thing mounted outside without having to buy any additional accessories like you had to do on the prior edition pan tilt camera. Now, as far as power is concerned, it runs off of USB power. Now, although the camera here is waterproof, the power supply is not. So Wyze suggests that you get their outdoor power supply if you want to use it outside. You could also run the cable inside. Unfortunately, though, the cable is only 6 feet long, and although it's a standard USB micro connection here, the cable is actually a little bit proprietary because it has some depth to its plug here for the weatherproofing. So you can't really use just any USB micro connector in here. You probably need to go with theirs to preserve the weatherproofing here. So I think some of you might be disappointed with the relatively short cable length. I would imagine they'll probably have longer cables available with their outdoor kit, but it is another thing that you have to buy, unfortunately. Now, like prior edition cameras, this does support an SD card, and my camera here is booting itself back up again, but the SD card will go inside of this slot right here, and you do want to make sure if you're using the camera outside that you get this gasket resealed after you put the card in. It will take up to a 256 gigabyte card, and if your intention is not to use their subscription service, the SD card now is pretty much mandatory because there's no cloud video available unless you pay the subscription. Although, if you have the SD card installed, you can get at those recorded files from your phone through the app, which I'll show you in a minute. You also have a setup button here for getting everything up and running, and we did do the setup earlier in another video. Now, you control the camera through the Wyze app that is available on iOS and Android. The camera connects to your Wi-Fi, and once you have it paired up with your network, it'll usually pop up here in the app. As you can see, I can control the camera with these arrow controls here. This will work anywhere in the world, so you don't have to just be in your home to use it. You can also swipe your finger on the image here to move it around. Now, you'll notice here I have some waypoints set, and what I can do is very quickly jump between these waypoints here if I want to have the camera look at specific things. And one of the neat things about how the camera works is that once you get these waypoints programmed in, you can turn on the pan scan mode, and if you have the camera set to detect motion, what it will do is lock itself into each waypoint for 10 seconds. If it sees something, it'll stay there and record a motion event. If it doesn't see anything, it goes to the next waypoint, as you just saw. It'll sit for another 10 seconds and then go to the next one. Now, of course, right now I'm moving in front of the camera and it's still doing its programmed tour here, but that's because, again, I have the motion detection currently set to off. But I think if you have a room with a lot of things that you want to keep track of, you can have the camera regularly move around on this schedule, and every time it sees something, it will lock in on what it is looking at. And you can also have it track motion here. And when you enable that, when it detects motion, it will then follow the thing moving around until it doesn't see it any longer. And a little bit earlier, I put a box down on top of my computer here and then walked away. And as you can see, the camera was able to keep track of me as I was walking away. And then it held the shot here after I disappeared, and then it went back to its normally scheduled patrol route. As you can see, the video quality in good light looks pretty good on the camera. It'll shoot 1080p at around 20 frames per second in good light. In night mode, it will do about 15 frames per second, also at 1080p. But like prior Wyze cameras, you do get a good amount of motion artifacts, as you can see, when the camera or a subject in the camera is moving. So the image quality won't be as crystal clear as a more expensive system might be, but I think it's adequate enough for the price point. And I was pretty impressed with the night vision on this camera. It looks really nice. It does have infrared illuminators on the front of the camera that you can switch off. But as you can see here, it very clearly sees me in a pitch black room. And as I got closer to the camera, it did not blow out my face, so you could easily identify somebody there. Now there's also a color night vision mode, which is what we're looking at here. This is a mode where you'll probably need some ambient light source because, as you can see here, this pitch black room doesn't do much here. But what is illuminating me in this shot is the screen of my phone. That's it. And as you can see, it does a pretty nice job pulling out color, and as you'll see in a second, some detail in my face as I get closer to the camera here. So if you have an overhead light or some other kind of ambient light in the area in which you're installing the camera, this might be a good alternative to the regular night vision because you will get color and perhaps a little more detail in the areas that you're trying to keep an eye on. Now, in addition to picking up video, it can also pick up audio, and if you're curious about what its microphone sounds like, here you go. Nothing spectacular, but I think good enough if you want to have a conversation with somebody. Now, there is a speaker on the back of the camera, so you can have a two-way conversation with somebody no matter where you are in the world. The speaker is not incredibly loud, but it's loud enough that if somebody is near the camera, they should be able to hear it. To initiate a two-way conversation, you do have to tap on the image here and push the microphone icon. This is a duplex kind of arrangement, so you don't have to hold the button down. You can speak normally. So if you do have somebody that's wandering around your house, you can yell at them and then have them hopefully talk to you and explain why they are there. So now let's take a look at the app. There's a lot of settings in here. We're not going to be able to cover all of them, but I'll give you kind of a good idea as to some of the more key features. Now, right now, we're on that screen we were on before where we can monitor the camera live. If I hit the record button here, what it will do is start recording onto my phone directly. So that's a good way to grab a quick recording and have it saved on your device locally. What I've got down here is the recent events, and what this will do is show me every motion and sound and AI event that the camera picked up. And what I could also do is go back to my main Wyze homepage here on their app and also go over to events, and here it will combine what this camera has picked up along with all the other Wyze cameras I might own. What I wanted to show you though is a little further down on the page here. So earlier when I first set up the camera, I did not have the subscription service enabled, and so if you are not subscribing, when the camera picks up an event, all you're going to get is a still image. You won't be able to play anything back. On the older cameras you could. Here it is going to require the subscription in order to get the video playback from the cloud. But if you have the SD card installed and you tap on this SD card icon here, what it will do is go into your camera's SD card archive here and play back the motion event from the SD card over the internet. But if somebody were to walk off with the camera, the SD card will go with them, so just be aware of that. but you can get most of the cloud functionality with an SD card installed, but there is an extra step here to get to that. Now, without the subscription, you're only going to get notified once every 5 minutes. With the subscription, you get notified more frequently, so there's less of a cooldown period if you are subscribed. Now, also with the subscription, they have something that will detect people. So for example, while we're in our event screen here, if I tap on person, what this will do is narrow down all of the motion events and show me only the events that a person was detected in. And again, this is another feature that only comes with the subscription service. This will likely, though, give you fewer false alarms because you can set the notifications to only go out when it detects a person, a package, a vehicle, or a pet, for example. Now, if we jump back to our camera control page here and click the gear icon, we can go in and see what some of our other options are. A big one here is event recording. And right now I have it set to record all motion events, but what I could do instead is have it only look for smart detection events, which again would include people and pets and other things, and that will give me less false alarms. One of the things that I've noticed with these cameras over the years, and this one is no exception, is that as you saw earlier, you do get a good amount of compression artifacts on the screen, especially in lower light situations. So there are times where it might detect some noise as motion, and that would push a notification to you. It's pretty good these days about not doing that too often, but it does happen. And if you do those smart detection events, that will give you far less of those notifications. And within the smart detections, you can set the kinds of things to look for. And not only do you have images that it looks for, but also sounds. So you could have it set to detect crying if you have a baby in the house, or a dog barking, or a cat meowing. And they're working on adding new detection events all the time within their AI system there. Now, if you have an SD card installed, you can have the SD card record just the events that it picks up in addition to sending those events to the cloud, or have the SD card record continuously, and in that mode you'll get the full context of whatever motion event is going on with only the event itself going up to the cloud. And you set that in the advanced settings here. You go over to the record to SD card and have that set to on. Now right now mine is set to events only, but if I hit continuous here, what'll happen is that the camera will record all the time, 24/7, and when the card runs out of space, what it will do is delete the oldest recordings to make room for the new ones. But I think you could easily get a week or two of recording on a decent sized SD card. And SD cards these days are pretty inexpensive, so you should be able to keep a good archive of the recordings there. And if I jump back here and I go over to SD card, what this will do is pull up our menu here so we can browse through it. Now, if you have a green line here on the right-hand side, that indicates that it has footage. And then all of these little dots indicate something that the camera picked up. So these were sound events that it picked up. This purple one here was a person walking in front of the camera. So the events will get tagged here, and then you can scrub back and forth to see what was happening before or after that event. So you could have the event go to the cloud and then refer to the SD card to get the full before and after of that event. Now you can also set a custom detection zone so it ignores certain parts of the image. You do that through your settings here under detection settings, and if you go over to detection zone and turn it on, what you'll get is the option to set an area where the camera looks for motion. So if I add a few more boxes to the image here, what will happen is that it will ignore everything on the left and right here, but only look for things happening in the middle. Now, because this camera can kind of go on patrol, this zone is going to be kind of fixed at this position. So as the camera moves, it will continue only looking in this portion of what it sees. So this may be a little less useful on the pan cam here, but the Wyze fixed cameras also can make use of this feature. Now, Wyze also integrates with Amazon and Google. A little bit earlier, I had my Google Home display the camera's output with a voice request, and again, you can have that work anywhere in the world. Additionally, you also can use it with if this, then that, and if you have a lot of other Wyze devices on your network, you can set up a rule in Wyze to maybe have the lights turn on when the camera detects a motion event. So there is a lot of smart home integration here with other Wyze products, along with things that you might use with Amazon and Google. So overall, this is a nice improvement over the prior edition Pan Cam from Wyze. Although, if you are somebody who doesn't like paying subscription fees, you get less functionality out of this camera than you did out of the prior edition. So the old one worked with the SD card, but also gave you some cloud storage for free. This one does not give you any cloud storage unless you pay that ongoing subscription fee. But otherwise, I do think it's a good value. If you have an SD card or plan to get one, I think you can get a lot of use out of this camera without having to pay anything beyond the purchase price. But of course, a lot of the more advanced features are now locked behind that subscription paywall. That's going to do it for now. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold level supporters Brian Parker, Chris Allegretta, Hot Sauce and Video Games, Logic KGR, Tom Albrecht, and Amda Brown. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/s.